What's holding you back doesn't have to.
Please welcome Red Hat Director of Product Marketing, Katie Piccarelli.
Welcome to AnsibleFest at Red Hat Summit 2023. We are so glad that you are here with us this afternoon. Today in Boston is the very first time that AnsibleFest has been co-located with Red Hat Summit. How many of you have been to an AnsibleFest before? Raise your hand. Yeah, all right. Glad you're back. We are so excited for those of you joining us for the very first time and for those of you who are here with us again. It's a really, really exciting time to be here. Over the next hour, we're going to continue the conversation that we kicked off this morning with the Summit main stage, but with an automation twist. We're going to challenge you to rethink what's possible with automation. And we will dive deeper into the announcements that you heard this morning about Event-Driven Ansible and Ansible Lightspeed with Watson Code Assistant. So let's kick this off with what I hope is a non-controversial take. The future is going to be automated. I would imagine, though, that if you didn't agree with this assessment, you probably wouldn't be here sitting in this room or watching it on the live stream. But you are here. And I can tell you that from an Ansible perspective, this automated future is bright. Because as a product and a team and automation enthusiasts just like you, we have rallied around the idea that brings clarity to our efforts in the community, across our ecosystem, and with our customers. So what is that idea? The power of and. At Ansible, we know automation is the key to unlocking open hybrid cloud. We know the transformative potential of the technologies that we are developing, but we also know we can't do it alone. It all clicks when it comes together. When people like you and me build on each other's ideas, amplify each other's strengths, and figure out new ways to tackle the problems that we're all facing. One thought exercise that we have, I started out by saying that the future will be automated, and it will be, trust me. But you know what that means. There's only a growing number of automation tools out there, And everyone in this audience is already dealing with some degree of technology sprawl. And we know that if there's anything about this industry, it's just not going to stop. New companies will emerge, and our competitors will keep pushing. And the open source automation community, all of you, never stop innovating. Ansible has been quickly evolving over the past few years to stay ahead of this evolving landscape. And more importantly, the evolution is to make flexibility and choice a reality at scale. We do believe that this vision became a reality when recently that Red Hat was named a leader in the 2023 Forrester Wave for IT automation. As you can see from the graphic, that Red Hat Ansible was leading the way when it comes to strategy. And that strategy is firmly grounded in embracing the power of "and" to help you tackle your biggest challenges. I will quote the report. Red Hat sets the pace of the market by addressing operational challenges, skills gaps, and budgetary pressures. The strength lies in its community, which has led to solid partnerships and supporting services. Red Hat capitalizes on the ecosystem by adopting and embracing the work of contributors and users. So where do we go from here? As the platform continues to evolve, the Wave report tells us that Ansible Automation Platform is a great fit for firms seeking a consolidated automation across infrastructure technologies and vendors. This is an area that we really see the landscape shifting as teams and companies combat technology sprawl. Ansible is uniquely positioned to take on the role of automating the automation. This ability to connect disparate automation and amplify the impact. More importantly, though, you are uniquely positioned to impact your career, work with your teams, and the companies that you work with every day. This new paradigm will help customers get more bang for their buck, and with that platform, allow you to tackle more challenges while integrating the existing tooling and maximizing the value of the investments that you have today and in tomorrow. Skills gap was a key theme this morning in the keynote, and Ansible as a primary tool for consolidated automation will help drive automation adoption and alleviate those training burdens. So, as you think about your automated future, think about what "and" can help you accomplish. Is it orchestrating your network and security and cloud and infrastructure? Maybe it's deploying across any footprint, data center and cloud and the edge, automating across the entire lifecycle with provision, configure, and manage, and tapping into the incredible Ansible ecosystem with community content, with things that are developed by you and your organization, and with certified content. And that's all before we add Ansible Lightspeed and Event-Driven Ansible to the mix. And more on that in a little bit. You will definitely see more. Like I said, the future of automation is bright with Ansible. But no matter the direction you choose, we want our customers to expect more from their automation solutions. We want our customers to be able to automate more and get more done. If you're interested in learning more about where Ansible Automation Platform is headed, I recommend you check out these sessions today and tomorrow. Now, I'm thrilled to hand things over to my friend and colleague and the new Ansible Director of Community Strategy, Walter Bentley. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. This week is an extra big deal for me because this is the first time I've had a chance to get on the road and connect with folks since I took on my new role as the Director of Community Strategy for Ansible. But remember, I'm a longtime Ansible diehard. I can surely tell you that. I'm thrilled and honored to be here in this role. Like everyone in this room, I've seen the power of open source firsthand. As a consultant, I help countless customers put open source principles into practice on their own teams. We've all been part of the wave over the past decade where open source has become an indelible part of the fabric of IT industry. Open source has won. There's no doubt about that. But new issues have emerged. The lines between project communities and products have become increasingly blurry. Secure supply chains are the utmost importance to businesses. And the rapid adoption of generative AI is raising valid questions about code attribution. Open source has always been about innovation. It's always been about the best ideas winning, about change. And as we find ourselves in the automation moment, the Ansible community needs to be ready for change as well. Because quite frankly, the old definitions of open source don't really apply to the Ansible project anymore. Well, sure, there's still upstream and downstream, but those streams are now connected through a huge ecosystem of contributors and partners and customers, and of course, Red Hat. There's that idea that Katie kicked us off with. And there are so many people around the world using Ansible to tackle their IT and automation challenges. The challenges that you heard Matt lay out this morning in this morning's keynote are real. They are pressing, and perhaps, most importantly, they are shared. In 2023, there aren't just customer problems and community problems. There are technology challenges. There's automation ecosystem challenges. There are Ansible challenges. We aren't exactly sure what comes next in terms of this new definition, but I keep coming back to a phrase that I've had jotted down on my whiteboard for quite a few months now. And that phrase is automate as one. So let me tell you why I can't get that phrase out of my head and off my whiteboard, and how it's going to shape our approach to the Ansible community moving forward. Red Hat Ansible customers know the value that they are getting by tapping into open source innovation. Quick example of how that innovation can work. So I know you all heard about the GA of Event-Driven Ansible announced this morning. Well, if you remember, that announcement, we announced that back in AnsibleFest in 2022 in October, the developer preview of it. Well, one thing, within a week, a community member had contributed a brand new plugin. See, that's what it's all about. Big shout out to Thomas over in Sweden. Thank you sincerely for being a contributor. We've also had a lot of Ansible automation subscribers who still download Ansible Core nightly releases. Well, these are our power users who want the latest and greatest, and they also are an incredibly important part of our community ecosystem. Whether they realize it or not, they are helping push the entire Ansible project forward. This behavior doesn't happen at scale in a lot of places. But we are a very active community with tons of updates and releases. And as I mentioned before, there is a lot of cross-cutting between product and our upstream. We want everyone to be more cognizant of the value that customers and partners provide to community users. Not only are customers and partner users putting Ansible to work in mission-critical environments every single day, they are also busy training up their people. They're creating documentation and innovating. It's pretty clear that the Ansible tent is going to keep growing. And it's my team's responsibility to make sure that each of the constituent groups in this amazing community feel valued, welcomed, and heard. One specific challenge that in that regard that we're going to push is to have customers be a major part or be a part of the Ansible Steering Committee. Our entire ecosystem benefits from each other in so many important ways. And the leadership of the Ansible project is going to reflect that. I'm also excited to announce a new resource that we'll be introducing later this year. It's going to be an Ansible community site that will serve as a true hub for the new definition of community. We plan to create a place where perspectives from upstream and downstream are able to meet together. We will also be a place for contributors to learn from customers, and of course, vice versa. It's a place that we hope will all spark innovation and foster new connections and help shape the direction of Ansible's second decade. You're all part of the community, every single last one of you here, so welcome. Let's see what happens when we automate as one. Please come see us at the Ansible community booth and check out the sessions that you see on the screens here behind me. And be sure to say hey to me at the AnsibleFest party tonight. But now, it's time to explore automation and the AI revolution. Thank you so much.
Please welcome Red Hat Director of Product. Please welcome Red Hat Principal Technical Marketing Manager Craig Brandt with IBM Research Chief Scientist and IBM Fellow Dr. Rashir Puri.
Rashir, welcome to AnsibleFest. It was October since we last spoke, and it feels like the whole generative AI landscape has changed. How has your thoughts of Project Wisdom and the relationship between Red Hat and IBM Research evolved since then? Has your perspective changed at all?
So first of all, I think it's wonderful to be back. Thank you for inviting me here. And I think it wasn't sort of a coincidence that roughly around 3 years back, we really reimagined what the future of software will look like, because we really sort of foresaw that AI, the two forces of AI and software, will intersect with each other, which was the start of Project Wisdom together with Red Hat and IBM Research. And since then, I think it's well known that 15-character URL, which was sort of put out as single tweet, has changed the world. And our journey has been very fundamental and has been focused really on, I would say, I will repeat the words, quality, quality, and quality.
Absolutely.
Not just quality for anything, but quality for Ansible and quality for the domain that we are in.
Absolutely.
And the second one really will be, I would say, sort of really going out and making sure from the point of view of deployment efficiency and from the point of view of making sure there's trust in AI. Those are the main important things we've been focused on, and making sure we bring the power of generative AI to your IDE near you, in particular VS Code. So that's what we've been focused on, very practical, and that has resulted in the announcements at IBM Think with IBM Watson Code Assistant, and resulting in the announcements in the morning today on Ansible Lightspeed.
Trust is such an important point. And Richard, next question for you. What is something that companies aren't thinking about but should be when it comes to generative AI?
So as I mentioned, in particular, companies have started to look into this, but I think they really are uncertain how to think about it. And I just mentioned in my previous answer, companies should be really thinking about trust. Generative AI is a very powerful force percolating across every aspect of our society. But the trust of generative AI is fundamental to its success. What do I mean by trust? Capabilities, what were demonstrated today by Katie and team in the morning, in particular, content source matching, also known as, in verb, I will say attribution. It's important in the developer community that if a generative AI model or a large language model is taking an answer from a developer, it's responsible and ethical thing to do to acknowledge it. We all want to be acknowledged. But I call it in enterprises, software development is not an individual sport, it's a team sport. And the trust of the generated content really plays into that team sport from the point of view that if a model is recommending me something, and if it tells me that content actually came from Craig, and while I'm sort of looking at that content, I may like to call Craig and say, hey, Craig, I'm really looking at that content. Do you think what I'm modifying or what I'm taking is OK? So it really is not just an ethical and a responsible thing to do, but it gives rise to that collaboration, which is so success to the critical of software development in enterprises, which is exactly gives rise to that trust. So I think these are the kind of things we have been focused on, and they are so critical to what enterprises should be thinking about that they haven't been as much thinking about, but it really comes back to the trust point.
Yeah, it's really about that open source collaboration connection, right? That's such a great point, and the trust as well. Rashir, what do you think will determine the success of a company adopting and employing generative AI successfully?
I think the success always comes down to, a lot of you have seen the narrative around generative AI, writing your kids' essays, poetry, paintings, but it's, in the day job that all of us are in, we are responsible for information technology and the development of information technology. And it's going to come down to really bread and butter of what makes us successful as developers. So I'll give you a quick example. IBM company is roughly a company of around 220,000 people. We've got more than a few developers in our CIO team, as you might imagine, roughly around 12,000. And as we were developing IBM Watson Code Assistant and Ansible Lightspeed, our CIO team is a large user of Ansible, and like all other enterprises, they're struggling with the skills gap. They're trying to onboard a lot of developers, but they're struggling with that skills gap. And as they were sort of onboarding a lot of developers, we said this is a perfect occasion for us to prove the value of Ansible Lightspeed. And we deployed that as a pilot. And from a metrics point of view, we were able to achieve 60% of the code that was being written by the onboarding team, which were kind of beginners in Ansible, all automatically. Again, I'll re-emphasize. 60% of the code that was generated by this beginners team, which was being onboarded, was developed automatically by Ansible Lightspeed. Those are the kind of success measures and proof metrics that the enterprises should be looking for. It's not about the narrative. Finally, it's really about things that make you productive and how you measure productivity.
Such a good point. And it's really about breaking down that barrier to entry to really get the most use out of Ansible. Rashir, I know you share the passion for this subject. What are you most excited about, both in terms of your team's developers and for what's coming next year?
What I'm most excited about, I would really say, will be, first of all, just the power of generative AI, broadly speaking. But again, I'm going to narrow it down to the scope that we are in, really as a developer community and as Ansible developers and on Red Hat platforms. I'm looking forward to rolling out not just the use case that you are seeing right now, which is on code generation or content generation. Right now, the task it can do is more at a task level, actually. I'm looking forward to generating roles, playbooks that are really responsible for roles, and broader functions beyond that. That's the first one of content generation. Second one I'm incredibly excited about, and this we have heard from many clients, many of you in the audience, is really around content discovery. There are hundreds and thousands of developers within the enterprises, and lots of playbooks being developed, thousands of them. So really help me able to discover and manage this content. The third one I'm really excited about is content explanation. Can you explain to me what does this content do? And the fourth one I'm really excited about is content optimization. And I'm looking forward to rolling those massive set of capabilities to a desktop near you, to an ID near you, and it's going to be an incredibly exciting journey.
Rashir, thank you so much for that insight.
Thank you, Craig.
All right, thank you very much. This partnership is so exciting, and it's really just getting started. Let's turn our attention now how generative AI is going to impact the Ansible experience. Join me in welcoming Matthew Jones, Distinguished Engineer and Chief Architect for Ansible, to the stage. That's you.
All right, thanks, Craig. That conversation with Rashir, it was really insightful. But with all of that context fresh in our mind, why don't we actually show this thing off?
Matt, couldn't agree with you more. This morning, we announced the technical preview of Ansible Lightspeed with IBM Watson Code Assistant. And we provided a 10,000-foot view of its features and its potential. How about we take this to the next level and apply Ansible Lightspeed to a real-world use case, hybrid cloud?
I think it's a good idea.
I think we should. For the folks that did join us this morning, some of this might look familiar, but we're just going to go over the basics again for the folks who are joining us for the first time. OK, so let's imagine we're exploring AI, right? And I want to train our model with data housed in Azure Data Store using GPU-optimized instances in AWS. A real hybrid cloud use case.
So
Oh, yeah. As the network operations person now, I've been tasked to connect these two clouds together. And to do so, I've got to perform certain things. In Azure, I need to provision an instance and configure the VPN client software. And in AWS, I need to configure a VPN gateway connection. All right.
Into the clouds. Let's get started.
Absolutely. So creating quality Ansible code requires an integrated experience. I think we all know the joys of context switching and copying and pasting from websites and Googling for hours. Never mind cats on keyboards.
Cats on keyboard. Yeah.
To that extent, we've natively integrated all the AI goodness that Ansible Lightspeed offers into the Visual Studio Code extension. And I have that open right now. Yep.
Yeah.
OK, so I've started a couple of playbooks to complete and accomplish the task that I outlined previously. We're going to ask Ansible Lightspeed to help us out here.
Just like this.
Absolutely. So asking Ansible Lightspeed for a suggestion, it's as easy as pressing Enter and it takes my natural language, my easy-to-understand Craig language, and puts it into a suggestion. And all I have to do is press Tab to accept.
That's really interesting. What's really interesting about it is the modules, they can have a lot of different options and overall, but this looks syntactically accurate.
Syntactically accurate and something else too. Matt, did you notice I didn't have Azure in the task description whatsoever?
I did notice. Yeah.
One of Ansible Lightspeed's superpowers is context. Have a look at that playbook name. Azure Hybrid Cloud Connectivity. Well, it used that to know exactly what module to include in the suggestion. And it did something else which I really like. It used the fully qualified collection name, or FQCN.
Yeah,
Right,
yeah.
that's it. So there's the playbook name there. And the FQCN, it's one of our best practices, isn't it?
That's a really good call out. Our experience helping customers automate at scale and our unique insight into the Ansible code base, it positions us to offer an enterprise-grade AI solution for Ansible. We've created a specialized post-processing capability based on that experience using Ansible Risk Insights, which we call ARI.
That's it.
And it augments Ansible Lightspeed suggestions with best practices and more, right? Like, for example, we've anonymized the data. That's what ANO user is here, right?
That makes
Anonymous
sense,
user.
right? OK, that does make sense. And as part of the network operations team, I'm really loving that practical example. That ANO user example makes it really easy for me to understand how to configure the SSH key for our instance. So I'm going to go ahead and change our user to our cloud user, which is
That's probably
Ralph.
not a good username to use.
So true. OK, so that looks really good to me. Now, Matt, for the next section, I'm going to go over this really quickly, and then we can chat about what Ansible Lightspeed did afterwards.
Yeah, let's do it. I'm just going to stand here and watch.
Oh, yeah.
Not too far, so I'm going to fall off this
I've
thing.
almost fallen off already.
But hey, while you're doing this, one of the things that I'm noticing is I love the speed that it's generating these tasks for you. But we're setting up a RHEL system here, so we're going to have to wait for it to come up as we just
Correct.
created the VM.
Correct. We're just provisioning that instance, so we'll just have to give it some time to go up. And all right, so as the network operations person, I'm comfortable with the VPN software, which is LibreS1. However, systems management, well, that's something new to me. So Ansible Lightspeed, using our post-processing capabilities, generated quality systems management automation content, which, by the way, is one of our bread and butter use cases, saving me a ton of time.
Speaking of bread and butter, though, what's this red line under the task?
Well, yeah, red is usually not good, right? OK, so that looks like something we can fix there.
I bet it is. We could improve on this, but how do we know what parameters to use in that?
Great question. We've integrated the documentation and Ansible lint into the Visual Studio Code extension. We're really going for that holistic content creation experience.
It's important to point this out, right? That Ansible Lightspeed it's here to augment your expertise. You know what you want to automate, and Ansible Lightspeed is another tool in the toolbox designed to help you achieve that faster.
It's such a good point. And what I loved with this one especially is it was giving me best practice security recommendations as I type, right, in real live time. So that's perfect for me. Matt, this looks good to me.
No red line.
No red line. So I think we're done with Azure.
Yeah.
Let's move over to the AWS section. And again, asking Ansible Lightspeed for a suggestion, taking my simple Craig English.
Following best practices.
Yep. And pressing Tab to accept the recommendation.
That's a lot of variables, Craig. I don't know what any of those are.
It is indeed a lot of variables. However, this suggestion will work 100% of the time and suits a lot of use cases. However, for our hybrid cloud project, we're using specific AWS tags. So I'm going to go ahead and uncomment the module default section.
Back to the best practices that we recommend. This looks really good. So like module defaults, good. We're going to generate this. And tab, we see it spinning down there on the bottom, so we know it's working. That's amazing. And what I'm noticing here is that Lightspeed used your context to make that suggestion.
It did indeed. And as a network operations person, I understand static routes, right? So that's the one over there, that's static only, and VPN gateway ID. So that makes a lot of sense to me, right? And as somebody who knows the networking technical bits, I'm comfortable with that. And I'm OK with Ansible, but this is really helping me out with the cloud part that I don't really know. OK, so I'm going to say, yeah, again, rapid. We've created the playbook. And next, I want to share something that we hold dear to our hearts here at Ansible.
Oh, I'm excited. Are you excited? Training matches. Oh, I see. So what we're highlighting here is that these suggestions came from the Ansible community.
That's it.
We don't want to hide that, right? Like Ansible Lightspeed transparently shows us the potential source, the author, the license for all code recommendations. What we want to do is build that trust in the community and all of the hard work and supporting the relationships that this is what Ansible is all about. It's in Red Hat's DNA.
Yep.
This information ensures we do this right with the community and use the data that's amenable to us.
Absolutely correct, and I couldn't agree more. Matt, this looks good to me. Again, rapid time, 100% working playbook.
No time at all.
Let's commit it with a very original commit message.
Oh, hybrid ops. I
Yeah.
like it. I like it. So this is an important point.
Right.
You shouldn't blindly trust large language models. We don't expect you to. Good coding practices still apply. You want people to review the code and run it through tests before it gets into production. We have all of the tools and systems and utilities in place to facilitate that.
So true, especially with large language models.
Yeah.
OK, so I'm going to go ahead and sync my changes to our source code repository. And next, I'm going to move over and use Ansible Automation Platform to run our hybrid cloud tasks. So I'm going to switch over to Ansible Automation Platform and Automation Controller UI. Automation Controller is the management layer of Ansible Automation Platform and is jam-packed full of the enterprise features that organizations need to scale their automation. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and click on that big launch button, and that's going to open something called a controller workflow. And a workflow lets me take smaller pieces of automation and logically chain them together to solve more complex problems. In our workflow, we're fetching those tested playbooks first.
Right.
Then again, in Azure, we're provisioning that instance and configuring our VPN client software.
And Azure.
And last but not least, We're configuring that VPN gateway connection in AWS.
Look, what we've done here is great. We've simplified the automation into concise, reusable pieces, which we talk about all the time. And this really highlights the power of Automation Controller working alongside those dev tools that we were just looking at.
Absolutely right. It's that same type of framework. All right, so I think it's important that we just take a step back here, and not too far,
Not
because
too far,
I am
yes.
going to fall. I know I'm going to fall. Right, we were able to create a true hybrid cloud by connecting AWS and Azure together. Ansible Lightspeed took my easy-to-understand language and created contextually accurate Ansible code, all integrated with best practices thanks to our post-processing capabilities. We then used Ansible Automation Platform's enterprise features to run our hybrid cloud tasks. So I would have never been able to do this by myself as the network operations person. So yeah, if red is bad, green must be good, right?
Green is good, but it's all good to say it in front of these people here, but
Right.
why don't we actually show them?
Proof is in the pudding, isn't it? So OK, I'm going to move over to my Red Hat Enterprise Linux cockpit dashboard, and I'm going to log in with that original
Well, we
user.
did use rel, yeah.
Yeah. And we should start seeing our data lake traffic flow.
So let's
real
wait for
soon.
it. Oh, I see
Okay.
it. I see it. That's
All right.
fantastic. We did everything we needed to do in record time, and now we can get on to the next things on our to-do list, right?
And we have a big to-do list. As a network operations person, I was able to take my subject matter expertise and apply it to a brand new domain, cloud. So imagine how this could help address the skills gap, but it also gave me an opportunity to explore a brand new domain and potentially growth in my career.
Well, excellent. That's what it's all about. That's what this is all about. Thanks, Craig. I really appreciate it.
All right.
So we just walked you through a very contextual demo of Ansible Lightspeed with IBM Watson Code Assistant. But before I go much further, I want to address the big elephant in the room. Generative AI is everywhere, obviously, but I can't overstate how different our approach to all of this has been. There are some really fun and interesting AI tools, and new ones are popping up every day. But Ansible Lightspeed isn't about helping write term papers or emails or poems. Our superpower is our focus. We aren't building an AI tool that can do a little bit of everything. We're laser focused on the experience of developing Ansible content. The goal of Ansible Lightspeed, full stop, is to make it easier to write playbooks or roles. This is AI purpose-built and applied for IT automation, because our vision is to deliver a focused generative AI experience that saves organizations time and money. We want automation architects and developers empowered to write Ansible content faster, better, with higher quality, and are more security conscious. We want domain and subject matter experts to spend less time writing playbooks and more time solving their biggest business challenges, and doing that with established automation best practices at their back. Through all of this, we want to help make sure the best content, examples, resources, documentation are more at the fore for others to discover. Ansible Lightspeed will not only serve up best automation code, it will know what the user is trying to accomplish with it, and that's what the vision for how AI is going to enhance Ansible as a technology community. Let's turn now to how Ansible Lightspeed, through our partnership with IBM, is shaping the future of Red Hat Ansible Automation Platform. When we first started building Red Hat Ansible Automation Platform, and we've been building it for a little while now, we focused on the runtime and where our customers could automate. But the truth is that having the flexibility to automate anywhere, it doesn't matter all that much if the content itself doesn't solve your problems. We focused a lot on the last couple of years on automation creation, creating the content. We wanted to deliver a developer experience built around really good tooling with things like the VS Code plugin, which we showed you up there, Ansible Lint, and a lot more if you've been following us. But where we're going overall is towards a deeper integration between the Ansible content experience and the platform tooling. That's why we showed those two things coming together. We want to spark better collaboration between developers and ops teams, the creators and the operators. Why? Because a question we get a lot from our customer and partner ecosystem is, how do I build an automation practice? The key to doing so is standardizing automation experiences throughout your organization for everybody that could use the automation. We want to close the loop between tasks that have to get done and what you want to achieve. We want to empower systemic automation that drives IT organizations forward. Ansible Lightspeed with IBM Watson Code Assistant gives us an entirely new way to tackle this. Instead of wasting time Googling, copying, pasting code, going back to documentation, looking here, asking questions, instead of doing all that, Ansible Lightspeed works directly in your code editor, along with all of those other tools. It offers code recommended by a capable, automation-specific foundational data model, and it's served up with attribution of its original source for maximum transparency and trust. And as the extended Ansible community continues to train the wisdom model, the Red Hat engineering team will be working to evolve AAP with wisdom, offering to be available to meet the specific needs of individual customers. So think about where we could go with this and where we are going with this. Think about custom models and custom rules to go along with Ansible Risk Insights that I mentioned earlier. Think about custom policies as applied to that, reaching into your automation developers and your ops teams. It's all about leveraging AI to make it easier to write automation code and to give teams more clarity and context in the process. So that's a quick rundown on how Ansible Lightspeed with IBM Watson Code Assistant will help take Ansible content creation to the next level. But there's something else that I want you to see today, so I'm going to get off the stage real quick. But be sure to check out some of these sessions and workshops while you're here. And now I want to turn to another big piece of the puzzle to see how all of this fits together, and that's Event-Driven Ansible. For that, let's welcome Richard Henshaw, Director of Product Management for Red Hat Ansible. Thank you.
Thanks, Matt, and good afternoon, everybody. Let's start with a thought. Automation is nothing if it's not solving a problem. And you're all here because we have problems we need to solve. And sure enough, we see our customers using Ansible and the automation platform to solve all sorts of automation problems, from the provisioning of configuration of infrastructure and networks, to automating security operations, to building and managing cloud infrastructure. But for every movement forward, as automators, we find ourselves at a new inflection point, a time for reflection. We've built a strong foundation. You've heard about that today. But how can Ansible help us solve the next set of problems to get to that next level of operational efficiency? How do we enable application teams to access our increasingly complex and sprawling infrastructure? How do we ensure consistent, reliable configuration? And how do we make sure that the right security policies are applied at all times? And then importantly, how do we execute that securely and be able to prove what we did or we're going to do? And that's why I'd like to briefly talk to you about an approach we'll call operations as code. So what do I mean by ops as code? It's a simple enough idea in theory. Ops as code is built on the same premise as infrastructure as code or config as code, to allow known sequences of tasks to be executed in a repeatable, scalable way, and by doing so, reduce toil and help teams move faster. But we view ops as code as an elevated progression of those two other terms. We're talking about taking the accumulated knowledge of ops, infra, and application teams, all that context they've learned by working through problems, and codifying it in Ansible playbooks in our new event-driven Ansible solution, which uses Ansible rulebooks. And as a consequence of this automation, it also supplies your team with great documentation. And how many of you can say you've documented all of that knowledge? And in doing so, it ensures that operational knowledge doesn't just live with individuals or in teams, but becomes a common resource for the entire organization. The how-to of day two gets converted into code, into something tangible that can be executed consistently as systems become increasingly intelligent and complex to manage. But that's always been the goal, right? As more and more tasks get automated, a larger variety of problems can be identified and addressed more quickly, freeing up people to focus on tackling new challenges. But thinking about ops as code is not about replacing people and processes. It's about how we extend and move further into completing the automation story we've been advancing over the past decade. So the same benefits and lessons from automating one stage of our system's lifecycle can be applied to more of that end-to-end. We're building what we've already done, that foundation. And we're applying those same learnings to other areas where there's a problem that needs fixing. And this is where we really need to level up our thinking and expand our concept of automation across the entire life cycle. Because this all goes back to what Katie laid out earlier, the power of and. Whatever your teams are planning and doing, they should be thinking and automation as well. Infusing your automation strategy into the very DNA of all your operations is the path to achieving truly transformative end-to-end automation. Extending where and how we leverage those existing investments, existing approaches, pushing our thinking into approaches like ops as code is what we at Red Hat believe offers the best chance to deal with our ever-increasing technology sprawl. Bringing consistency to the places that you need it to be, taming that complexity. But there's a few other factors to consider as well. Firstly, how does that automation content get created and shared? Well, this is where Lightspeed comes in, as Matt and Craig have just talked about. An ops as code approach can help organizations really get more from that AI investment. As SMEs use generative AI as a tool to help them create automation content, they're training data models with invaluable contextual expertise. This context is then codified. It goes back into the model, makes everything stronger. It's a virtuous cycle that is our end-to-end goal for bespoke, customer-trained data models. And this is why an as code is so important to how we do this. And then secondly, how do we trigger all this automation? Well, that's where Event-Driven Ansible comes in. You were introduced to Event-Driven Ansible this morning, but let me tell you why it's going to change how you think about automation. Event-Driven Ansible represents an exciting next step for organizations and teams looking to take their automation to the next level. That's been a driving force of our product roadmap for quite a while now. But think about it this way. You've got a variety of solutions and tools that are already collecting data, observing what's going on, identifying problems. And when they find that problem, what do? Well, you raise a ticket, you send an alert. Maybe you call somebody out. And you've got to hope it's the right person, right? Because in the meantime, time's money, right? If the issue is mission critical, you've got some pressure building, the dependencies, there's risks. All the time you're waiting to get that sorted out. And all of these steps, and here's the real irony, how many of those problems do we already have a solution for? We know the answer, but someone's got to come along, they've got to log in, they've got to fix it. This is a lot of time, it's a lot of toil, it's a lot of churn. And all the while, there's an issue, there's a problem. Event-Driven Ansible offers a better way. It builds on what has made Ansible so popular, the broad applicability and ease of use, and it expands that to tackle the problems we discussed here today. EDA introduces some new concepts, but in a familiar architecture. We've got sources. Where do we get our events from? We have rules, the logic that we would like to apply. And then we have actions, those steps we'd like to take. For individual Ansible users, they'll be able to use your existing skills and experience them from day one. They'll be able to use EDA to translate thought processes for common problems and their solutions into Ansible rulebooks, which function just like Ansible playbooks. But at an organizational level, Event-Driven Ansible, as part of the automation platform, helps scale these solutions to extend efficiency across all your existing environments. We integrate Ansible into sources of observation and information, things that normally trigger a manual response, then we can run the automation you've already built. Because ultimately, you can write all the automation you want for operational activity, but you have to be able to run it. And you have to be able to run it when you need to run it and where you need to run it. And that's what Event-Driven Ansible is designed to do. Receive, decide, and then respond. Now, while this model is great for issue remediation, it does have additional applications, like controlling config drift, responding to change conditions, ticket approvals, or response to security instance. There's so many places in your life cycle you can respond to a known event without manual activity. And in the end, the only real limit to what you can do with Event-Driven Ansible is your imagination. Do you remember those problems that we mentioned at the beginning? We believe that paired with the right strategy and unleashed to connect across your stack, Event-Driven Ansible is a game changer. Now let's hand over to Colin and Nuno, and they'll show us Event-Driven Ansible in action. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Richard. Thank you very much. We are Colin and Nuno. Nuno and Colin, the same guys we always have been. Actually, the same duo that brought you the failed ping test of last year's AnsibleFest. I don't know if you remember that. But today, we've learned our lesson. We're completely different people. Today, we are Colin and Nuno representing the Ansible's baseball team. Now, over the past season or so, we have been fortunate to become quite popular. Due to this popularity, it became obvious that our current application would not be able to scale to our needs. Now, in light of these growing pains, we started to move our application over to OpenShift, where we currently, actually, Nuno, why don't you talk through the application topology really quickly?
Sure, Colin. So, what do we have? Basically, what we're doing is we're taking video content and video streams. We ingest these, and you can see that we have a transcoding environment, so you can see we've got a processing grid. These streams come into this processing grid, we put the files onto the storage, and ultimately we change these files into different codecs that we push out to the application that sits on our CDN.
Yeah, very, very fancy. Excellent. So let's talk about opening day, Friday, April 7th. Imagine this, freshly cut grass, perfectly raked dirt, the smell of hot dogs and popcorn just filling the air. We have a sold-out crowd at home, and fans around the world are getting ready to stream the game. And then
it broke. Our video platform broke. Everything broke.
Well, let's be clear here. Your video platform. Remember 46 seconds ago, we talked about your video platform. It was the one that you built for the team and the one that the ball club has poured resources into over the past couple of seasons.
You cut me deep there, Colin. You cut me deep. But you forget that this system runs on your IT system, so therefore our video platform broke. And the timing couldn't have been any worse. So here are some of the issues that we actually had. Now, everything was running fine. We had a storage issue on the application. We ultimately had a power issue in terms of capacity. And of course, when no one really wants them, we have InfoSec knocking at our door complaining about compliance.
Shh, 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 shh. Don't say that too loudly. So, yeah, the day started rough, and the game started rough for the Ansible's IT team. Fortunately, though, we were able to take advantage of Event-Driven Ansible in some pretty key places to help solve some pressing issues during the game to make sure that the disruption to our fans was kept to a minimal. Now, what we first had to do, let's take a look through our application. First, we have this front end deployed in OpenShift. It's also observed by Dynatrace. So we get all that cool Kubernetes and OpenShift application performance metrics and infrastructure monitoring. And whenever something goes wrong, we have it surfaced within our Dynatrace problems dashboard. And what this is really nice is that we are able to extract this information out. And here you're seeing, well, it's turned red. This is bad. So this represents an issue within that off-cluster storage that Nuno was talking about a moment ago. Now, this doesn't look so bad within our problem dashboard here, but as we actually go into the application and an end user pulls up one of those video streams, this is what we see, this forever cycling buffering window. Looks terrible, right? So what we want to do is stand up Event-Driven Ansible in the middle to receive these events and then automate the response to these events. So let's take a look here. This is the Event-Driven Ansible controller. And we have a rulebook activation, which is constantly listening for new events in the background. Now, when it receives an event and those conditions match, it runs an automated remediation. And we can do any number of things with this payload. This is the payload coming straight out of Dynatrace. Dynatrace isn't just creating a problem, it's also telling us a lot about that problem. And we can use this payload within our rule books to decide when to act based on the values that we're receiving from the payload. And here we are within a rule book. We were able to define exactly which piece of that payload was going to drive our remediation and our automation. And then we target a specific job template in Automation Controller to run in response to those event conditions. And this is us in Automation Controller. This is the rest of our integration and tie-in to the rest of the Ansible automation platform. We can see within the job output, we're creating a new ServiceNow incident and then remediating the issue. And what's more, we get all of that payload coming from Dynatrace straight into Automation Controller so that when it comes time to create a new ServiceNow incident, we can also reference the problem identifier coming from Dynatrace. So when this all comes together, we have a brand new incident. Our issue is remediated. Going back to Dynatrace, we have a gray screen. That red problem is gone. And pulling up that stream again, as you can see, we got that on-demand video working again. And we were able to check out the latest episode of In the Dugout with Andreas Benno, which is always an absolute can't not miss. I wish I could say everything went smoothly from this point forward, but Nuno, I think you have something to say about that.
Yeah. So we sorted that one issue, but we also have other issues to deal with. So I've already told you that we're in entertainment. Tickets don't cut it. We need something that's quick, and hence we adapted our chat ops. So we're able to take chat ops as a source back into Event-Driven Ansible. So you can see I've got the Dynatrace incident already. We've had some other issues, and Event-Driven Ansible has already been able to go and resolve those issues for us. Now, how this all works is we have a rule book, and it takes the payload via webhook from the chat application, and we try and partial match or even match certain trigger words. Based on that, we push everything through to a playbook, and then ultimately, we process the action that we want out of that playbook. So it all works quite nicely, really, and we can always adapt it. So if I now need to go and expand, what am I going to do? I need to provision a new transcoder because I need more capacity. I do a trigger. We can see that the rulebook has now picked up that event. We now go ahead and we basically trigger the action that we had. So let's go and have a look now at controller. And if we go into controller, we can have a look at our jobs. And we should have a job triggering. We can see that there's a workflow job there. It's been triggered. And inside of this workflow, we're going to have a look and see what it's doing. So we can already see that we've built an encoder. That's great. And we're busy synchronizing our inventories from AWS. Now, if we have a look at what other steps we need to take place, we have a registration process for insights. And ultimately, we need to attach this back to the central storage. So remember, we have the insights requirement for security, and we will get to the point where we add this controller or this encoder back into the grid and increase our capacity. So if we go back to our chat, we can see what's going on. We can see these notifications. Oh, we can already see that there's actually something from Insights. And if we click on that, it actually takes us back. So not only are we forwarding this through to Insights, Insights is actually acting as a source back to Event-Driven Ansible. Now, it's really cool because it's obviously chat ops, so that means the security guys that are on the same team, they can already see this, and they can deal with that while we look at other things. So there you have it. We ran into a transcoding issue for the live stream of our game, but we were able to use Event-Driven Ansible with a chat ops approach to quickly solve that issue and get the stream back on for our fans. And we connected Insights as an event source for InfoSec.
Unbelievable. That's very fancy. So that is it in a nutshell. On opening day, we found ourselves in a bit of a mess, but we found that the capabilities of Event-Driven Ansible helped us work through multiple issues to get our video platform back on track. And the best part, the Ansibles pulled off a comeback victory and have been on an absolute tear ever since. So we covered a couple of scenarios today. The first one, we used Event-Driven Ansible to be a bridge between observability and automation. And this allows us to execute automation where reaction time is most impactful. And in our second scenario, we used Event-Driven Ansible to operate in a space where we feel most comfortable. We took advantage of the ease of integration and flexibility to engage with automation as we saw fit. As we combine these approaches, we're shown to be interacting with a platform that delivers impactful solutions through integration and the flexibility to create something truly great. If you're ready to learn about Event-Driven Ansible, we have a ton of great content here at AnsibleFest. And here are just some of the sessions and hands-on workshops that you should be adding to your agendas right now. Now, that's all from us. It's time for some final thoughts from the Tom Anderson. Tom, will you bring us across home plate?
Please welcome Red Hat Vice President and General Manager, Tom Anderson.
Yeah, those were awesome demos. Thanks, Colin and Nuno. And thanks to the Ansible's team manager, Andreas Benekritis. He's an amazing team manager, so that's great. So hello, everyone, and thank you for attending AnsibleFest this year. You know, I've been thinking about this as I've been sitting backstage, waiting for my moment here, is that I've been in this business, the data center automation and configuration management business, for a long time, for a really long time. And you know what? I've never been as excited about a product meeting its moment as I am right now. Today, just think about this. In the last 6 or 7 years, Ansible has come a really long way at Red Hat. Today, we have thousands and thousands of customers in nearly every industry vertical who are automating every conceivable workload across the entire open hybrid cloud, from data center to the edge to the cloud, on millions upon millions of nodes. Now, some of you have gone fully all in with us, building internal automation practices and pushing the boundaries of what's possible with IT automation. Others have found success solving specific use cases, whether it be server provisioning or network automation, and you've derived great value from that. And the rest find yourselves at varying points on your own automation journey. We work for all of you, and we continue to push forward to expand the scope of what all of our customers can achieve with their automation strategies. What you've seen today is the realization of a vision that we've been focused on for the past few years to enable our customers to create, to manage, and to scale automation at entirely new levels. We've re-architected the Ansible automation platform to deliver a container-native experience, so customers can be confident that their automation will run reliably and consistently at scale. We've partnered with the hyperscaler cloud vendors to ensure that you can automate your workloads wherever you choose to run them, from wherever you choose. And as you've heard today, we know that there is a clear way forward for organizations looking to get the most out of IT automation. So the two biggest challenges that we hear from our customers, and they are related, are one, a persistent and growing skills gap in IT operations, and two, that data center operations, and in particular, day two operations, is still too labor intensive. And we're addressing both of those challenges with Ansible Lightspeed and Event-Driven Ansible. Imagine, Ansible Lightspeed will help make it easy to take automation tasks from your brain onto the digital page. Okay, but an integrated AI solution can do more than create. It can help decipher and apply patterns. Very soon, Ansible Lightspeed will help ensure that an understanding of the structure of Ansible events and patterns is built into all Event-Driven Ansible rulebooks and Ansible playbooks being created. So now, AI won't just be helping to create automation content, it will be helping connect across infrastructures and all the way out to the edge. Ansible Lightspeed is built on a foundation model that has been trained with the subject matter expertise pulled from the entire ecosystem of Ansible. Use cases, technology partner integrations, validated collections, certified collections, and of course, from the entire open source community. We're bringing generative AI to IT automation in a purposeful way, to enhance the capabilities of your teams, to alleviate those skills gaps that I referred to earlier, while making Event-Driven Ansible a reality at scale to free up your teams from the repetitive and the mundane so that they can focus on automation. That is the power of "and" being harnessed to drive the next wave of automation. So if you've been at these events before, these Red Hat Summit events before, you know that we use a phrase internally to describe our role. And that is, we at Red Hat are a catalyst in the community of customers, of partners, and contributors to bring the power and the innovation of open source to the enterprise. And in my mind, there is no better example of that than what we're doing right now with Ansible. You've seen how the technology partnerships are driving forces behind Event-Driven Ansible and Ansible Lightspeed. Walter talked to you earlier about community contributors like Thomas and how important they are to the mission. Well, the final part of that equation is our customers, of course, you. Let's take Nestle, for example. Nestle started testing Event-Driven Ansible as soon as the developer preview came available last October, and we can't wait to see what Reza and his team at Nespresso do with Event-Driven Ansible as it becomes generally available shortly. Like Lightspeed, Event-Driven Ansible has been developed with the entire automation ecosystem in mind, and we're really thrilled about all of the integrations that are going to be available for our customers right out of the gate. The connections will be in place for our customers to use automation to get much more value from your existing IT investments. And that, again, is the power of "and" at work for you. So it's time to wrap up this day and put it in perspective. Earlier, Katie implored you to expect more from your automation solutions. As you get ready to head back out and discover all the great AnsibleFest and Summit content over the next couple of days, I want to leave you with a couple of big questions to think about. What more could you do if you connected your application and infrastructure observability platforms directly to your automation? How much more trust could you achieve by connecting your security operations teams to your networking infrastructure and engineering teams? What other challenges could you tackle with more automation? And how much more value could your IT team bring to the business? Matt referred to this earlier this morning. This really is the automation moment. This is your automation moment. Ansible's ready for it. You've seen that. Our ecosystem is ready for it, and we're here to ensure that you're ready for it as well. So thank you for your time today, and I hope to see you all at the Ansible party, the AnsibleFest party tonight. Thank you.